Hello, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of SaaS Minds. Today, I'm joined with Alina, the co-founder and co-CEO of Chili Piper. Welcome, Alina.
Welcome, man. I think I'm no longer going to call myself a co-CEO. I think I'm going to give up on that title and call myself a GEO because, CEOs are often put on a pedestal. People assume that they know everything, but in reality, we just put a team together and we guide them. So that's why it's like guide executive officer.
Guide Executive Officer. Do you know, I read another book recently, and it shouldn't be Chief Executive Officer, it should be Chief Executing Officer. Apparently that verbiage makes a big difference.
Guide executing officer. That's what I am.
There you go. There we go. We've redefined it. We'll make a new trend on LinkedIn.
I'd be, all of a sudden, all the SDR emails that I'm gonna get.
If you get an SDR email with the updated title, that's pretty amazing. I'll be pretty impressed.
True.
Will
She's
you
in
make a
charge of
promise now?
geolocation.
Yeah. Will you make a promise now to accept?
I'll be thinking about it.
Amazing. Okay, awesome. Welcome. Let's kick it off. People probably know who you are, but I think it's worth a mini introduction. Who is Chili Piper, and what's the brief journey that got you to where you are today?
It's my first company, but I've been at it for a long time, 8 years, and it's in SaaS years that feels like an eternity. And I never expected it to grow into the journey that it has been. I come from Romania. I'm an immigrant, and I started working in large companies here in many industries, in many roles, and it turns out I'm a lot better made for startups than I am for corporate.
Amazing. And give me some rough revenue, metrics of where you guys are at right now.
So we're 30 million plus, and we have decent. We used to have exemplar NRR when people would buy licenses where license cost, and when salespeople add more seats, they hire more salespeople. We do really well. If people fire their sales team across the industry, our NRR can have all sorts of differences across all sorts of segments and industry. We used to have like 160 NRR. Now we're a little bit below that, but we're still above 100. And it's interesting because I now see ticking back up. So I think that the industry is picking back up as well.
Cool. Let's go into that. That's quite interesting information. So you got basically intel on who's spending money on sales teams right now, and you're seeing a tick up. Are there any specific industries that you're seeing are picking up momentum faster than other industries?
Yeah. So we sell to SMB, mid-market, and enterprise. A big chunk of our customer base is SaaS, and in the SMB is as chaotic as it has ever been. I don't see a trend picking up. However, in the enterprise, strange enough, hires are back up. Enterprise is picking up faster than mid-market.
Interesting. What do you have a theory on why that is, out of curiosity?
I would imagine that now that efficiencies are that they've reached their efficiencies that they want to get back at growth. And what better way to do that than hiring salespeople?
Amazing. Cool. Let's jump into a bit more detail there. So why don't you explain for the audience what Chili Piper does for sales teams and how does it help them achieve their goals?
We're most known for a product that goes on people's form when they have a contact us, request a demo. Usually they get thank you, somebody will contact you soon, and then salespeople chase them, and then they try to get them back into the cycle. They're qualified, and we have a JavaScript that makes sure that the person that talks to sales is a qualified lead, and then that they get distributed to the right person. If they're a customer, they go to account manager. If they're an SMB, they go to an SMB rep. And it sounds simple enough, but it gets quite complex because there are a lot of rules and a lot of exceptions. And as soon as the JavaScript goes on somebody's website, the inbound conversion rate increases from like 40%, meaning only 40% of their traffic, of hand raisers, of qualified traffic, gets a meeting with sales. After us, it's about 80%, so it's like double
Wow.
that conversion rate. And it's immediate ROI, and we're pretty cheap.
Amazing. Amazing. And from, brief research, it's not ludicrous to say there's a lot of competition in the market, let's say, for what you offer. I guess two questions. How do you differentiate against that competition, both strategically, but then
For the
also
longest,
mentally, let's say, of like that there are lots of people that might be bucketed in the same bucket as you, and you want to push against that?
for the longest time, we didn't have competitors for the first 5 years, and it was rough. I think that if we had competitors, we would have grown faster, because we had to educate the market. And now there's some copycats, and people are trying to do that in some products as well, to some extent successfully for simple cases. And it helps us. Like, I see that a lot of competitors now use da versus Chili Piper. And when they do that, they just raise more awareness because they're aggressive with their go-to-market motion. So it helps me. It also keeps me on my toes, making sure that we are continuing to innovate and we have cool stuff going on. So surprisingly, it helps.
Interestingly, is there any scenarios where it hasn't helped?
We have some deals that we lose. We have some customers that are churned to some of our competitors, and it's painful to see. But those cases where we lose, it's a signal. It's a signal that we should do better. It's a signal that our product needs to learn to adapt, or our sales team needs to learn to adapt. So it's just a signal that it gets better, even though it might seem painful at first.
And are you active? And are you actively tracking that metric out of curiosity, or is it something that you just
Yeah.
occasionally a salesperson will say to you?
No. We get reports every month of churn against competitors and close lost against competitors. And I have about 6 of them, 6 or 7.
Cool. And now that you've got to this stage, so you've grown a fair bit, you didn't have competitors for the first 5 years, now you do. I imagine the way you're approaching growth in the first 5 years is extremely different to the way you approach growth now. Is that true?
Most of the playbooks that we used from our bootstrap years on our first 3 million in ARR are still the playbooks that we use today. There's some subtle differences. So the first rep was my co-founder, and he was always making sure that our first customers are thought leaders in the space or influencers. And because of that, it amplified very early on our message and our brand. And that's something that we still pursue. We look at emerging companies or emerging sales leaders to make sure that we're on their radar and that they work with us. So that has been a strategy that has always been enabled by us. The other one is in-person events. We do that a lot because even though we got used to Zoom, I believe that the human touch is essential for that deal cycle, especially in mid-market and enterprise. It's a lot easier. So for us, influencers and events have been strategies that we've been using since we were bootstrap, and now we're still enabling the same tactics at scale. It's just that we have to think about systems as opposed to one-offs playbooks.
Interesting. So you have, I'm guessing that implies that you have a system that tracks, the biggest upcoming B2B SaaS companies on market right now in certain industries, and you have a bunch of AEs and SDRs getting that list regularly and just going after them, I assume.
The account list is key. That targeting, that's very, that precision in targeting is essential. And also the ability to be at the events where your ICP is, to make sure that you're top of mind. And we still have strong playbooks with our partners. We have a lot of partnerships playbooks as well. And of course, we're all over LinkedIn. That's a must.
Sweet. Let's chat about LinkedIn now that you mentioned it. Like, you're very active on LinkedIn. Pros and cons of being on LinkedIn as a CEO. How do you personally find them?
At the beginning, I thought that I would not be able to do it. Actually, I remember telling my marketing team, never put me in front of anybody with a microphone or ever put me on social media. I felt very uncomfortable with the spotlight. And I think it's very typical of a engineering co-founder. But as soon as I realized, and it actually started in when the war in Ukraine started. As soon as I had very strong opinions about things, it just felt silly for me to not express them. And I saw that I managed to have an impact. We managed to raise at the very beginning when things were very unclear and UN was not on top of it, US was not on top of it. We had the $1 million that we dispersed at the borders to help families, especially kids and moms, and they were suffering. And just that ability to raise the money for those suffering families gave me the impetus to have the courage to be okay with being in the spotlight.
Amazing, amazing. And now, aside from, I think you have a foundation, I think that supports the activities there. Aside from, let's say, the charitable element of it, in terms of your business outcome, what are you seeing there from LinkedIn and your personal profile?
So the pros and the cons of the con on social media is that you get dissected in a million pieces, especially at scale. Like every word gets dissected. If you make a comment and you just made it on the go and you didn't give it much thought, it gets reinterpreted. And sometimes my humor is kind of dry and the humor doesn't come across as I want it to come across. So I learned to get better at these subtleties and how I use words and how I use emojis and so forth. At the beginning, it was really painful because I would get. So in our company, we have a very open culture where everybody can express disagreements loudly, and we have all sorts of decision memos where people can make decisions together. And because you have your employees that feel very comfortable to challenging the CEO, they would come to me, Alina, your comments make me very uncomfortable, or Alina, it makes me very angry to see your post. And I would not understand why, because initially the way I was thinking about it is that my intention was a good one. So I was less aware of my impact. And the more feedback I would get at the beginning, the better I understood what the impact is as well, even if the intention was a certain one. And I don't remember, at some point I said our ads are not performing well because somebody's on their honeymoon or something. It was like a joke that somebody was on a honeymoon, and that to them was, oh, we can't take vacation, or there's not that ease of work and play. So I'm learning so much about all the subtleties of every comment that I make. Every joke that I might perceive as funny has an impact somewhere. So I'm learning to communicate a lot better. I'm still not perfect. I still can have an impact because these days you never quite know who's going to hurt what and how. In reference to many cultures, many things mean so many, can be read so many ways. But by putting myself out there, I learned to iterate and iterate and iterate and iterate and get better. And that's a difficult process, especially if you go all in like I am, where there's nothing that you don't talk about. There's literally nothing that I wouldn't talk about. I can talk about religion, I can talk about politics, I can talk about my views on wars. And when you go all in and you go all transparent, there are a lot of risks that come with it. I'm assuming those risks, but it can be quite stressful if you have that approach, unless you learn to take every signal and every feedback as a precious gift that makes you get better at being okay with being open and transparent about everything that you do.
Amazing. I mean, that's quite. I don't think I could ever speak about religion or want to at this point of my stage, purely because of, as you described, the backlash or the comments that you might get, or the opinions that you might not hear but be said behind your back, for example. So it's really interesting you're there. let's go into a bit more detail then. Is there an element that you're, again, not saying what you're doing is right or wrong, who knows what's right or wrong, but is there an element that you're optimizing for the wrong metric, i.e., like people's opinions who might not be 100% justified, but because we're on the internet and everything can be dissected in any way, we have to almost tailor it to fit, like almost, tailor it to fit anyone, to not harm anyone at the same time. How do you feel about that? And are you okay to, have your opinion out there, knowing that it will probably annoy half the community, but it is the right thing to say, for example?
There's there's an interesting perspective in that I don't aim to necessarily, my goal is to educate. Some of the things that I'm learning is to help others maybe have similar learnings or bringing awareness over things. And my hope is that I get such clarity of thought that I'm able to constantly be aware of my learnings and a way to distill them to those that might be following me. It's a little bit tricky because my learnings as a CEO are might not apply to those that might follow me. They might be on the sales side, they might be on the marketing front. I have quite a few founders, followers, but I have sales and marketing, and I have engineers, and I have product managers. And in general, my learnings are about human growth and about company growth and how you can maximize your potential within the constraints that we're giving, which are business. And I'm not always able to have the impact that I aim to have. But if there's a subset of the community that might get upset about that, my comments is not necessarily a reflection of my intention. It's a reflection of how I frame things, or it's a reflection of a high sensitivity that someone might have due to their upbringing or to their environment. And I observe that in some cases, if you have especially it happens a lot with minorities in general receive a lot of racism or a lot of comments that might not be quite appropriate. And it's not so much my specific comment, it's the volume of comments, right? If they constantly receive on a daily basis those little minute messages that make them hurt, mine might just be one in the sea of pain that they feel. And in that case, it's a sign that they have to learn from that signal. It's a sign that they have to learn from that signal, and I learn with them.
Awesome. Super aware. Very interesting. Let's shift it away from personal for a second. Let's talk about like the company LinkedIn, for example. Like I know Chili Piper had that viral April Fool's post, which was awesome, and it did the right, got the right, let's say, people watching the post. Did that result in any sort of business outcome? How do you think about that? How do you think about, creating attraction to Chili Piper on a bigger scale through organic LinkedIn?
So with that one, we had a lot of fun. Our aim was to entertain. We have that aim as well. We think life is short, and why have it be boring?
Nice.
We're, there was some hesitation before posting because a lot of people feel pain from getting back to the office, and especially if you're a parent with kids, and especially if you're a young mom. Um, so we were hesitant on making that as a joke since it has so many painful reactions behind it. But it did raise awareness that it's kind of silly that companies do that, that they bring people back to the office and we make a joke out of it. I think we got more than 2 million impressions. Obviously, we saw beautiful growth on our account, so it had the right business outcomes to it also. But it was just for fun.
Awesome. It was a great post. It was a great post. I remember seeing it. I think that what was great about it, it was very believable until the very last second. I think it was what makes great sarcastic, humorous posts. It was awesome, especially the image. Um,
Yeah, it's get back to the smelly fish in the microwave.
exactly. It was good. It was gold. Definitely needs to be some ads there, but that's a separate note. In terms of, let's talk about SaaS founders. So you've done the journey. You're still in your journey, but you've done a long journey. Let's say for SaaS founders that have just hit product market fit, that are looking to emulate a journey like your own, any tips you'd give them on scaling, on growing, on marketing? Like, how would you help them go from, let's say, product market fit to 10x more customers?
So you have your product, and obviously, if you are in a place where you see that the product is starting to take off, it means that you've identified well your ICP, your ideal customer profile. If you're in that state and you feel very confident that you know who your segment of buyer is, then you can continue to scale. If you're not sure, if you're saying that your product is for everybody, it's really, really hard to go ahead and scale your channels, because the more granular you get on who your ICP is, the better you get at identifying the channel that might have the biggest impact and become efficient in that particular channel. It's very tempting to try to boil the ocean and do SEO and do TikTok and do Instagram and do LinkedIn, YouTube. But 80% of results come 20% of the channels that you might go in, and why not just put all into those channels and maximize your effort there. So channels are critical, and ICP is critical. And then there's another component that for first-time founders, at least for me, it was something that I was still having a lot of, I didn't have an exact understanding of brand. It was very nebulous, like, oh, the thing that people feel when you're not in the room, or the what they remember about you. It was very nebulous. However, I'm finding that brand is critical to do outbound sales, to do sales well, because if people hear, oh, Chili Peppers, this funny thing, they did this post on April Fools, oh, let me see, the salespeople reach out, let me see what they do. And that is just another touch in the journey, because you need so many touches before somebody makes the decisions to get to that purchase. And brand is a component, it is a combination of many things. And one of the most important things in the brand is culture. And the reason why culture is such an important aspect of brand is because how your people show up on social media, how your people show up in your email, how your people show up in person are a reflection of who you are. And if you have employees that are not excited about the job, or you have employees that are saying things that are completely inappropriate, or they're not reflective of who you want to show up as, then you lose trust. And once a company loses trust, there's very little you can do. There are many things that you have to do to earn trust, but that trust get lost in a second. And especially at scale, keeping that culture at the same level of integrity as the beginning, that's the challenge. That's the challenge. It's the culture. It's not so much the other things. The other things come easier when you have the right people, and people believe in your mission, and they are in an environment where they grow. They figure things out, especially if you hire smart people. They figure out the numbers, they figure out the channels, they figure out how to optimize for things. But if there's not that culture and that cohesiveness, it breaks.
Cool. Let's dive into culture a little bit more. So let's say the SaaS founder agrees that culture is the bedrock. They're probably thinking, okay, how did Chili Piper embed culture right at the beginning? Like, what was that process? Was that just you being you, and it naturally expanded, or was there a deliberate effort to say, this is our culture, everyone let's adhere to this idea?
We're very intentional about it. Very, very intentional. The values are now exactly what the values were from the day zero. I'll give an example of one specific value, which is the value of help. In a culture, the team has to work really well together. They have to be very cohesive to win the game, right? There's very little you can achieve that's of magnitude alone. You have to put your heads together to work well. And if you always put yourself in the mindset of help, how can I help the other? How can I help the other? It's a very different game. There's a lot of tools that you can do to teach people to be empathetic to others' needs, and a lot of methods for showing empathy. However, care and high regard of caring for others, it's not something that can be trained so much. It's a lot harder. It takes very long. It's a very long process, and as a result, we hire for that. I literally care that I hire for people that care genuinely for others. That's one example of one of our value, but we're very intentional about the hires. We're very intentional about the trainings, and continue to grow them. Besides the values that were very intentional, there's something else that is less apparent at the beginning, is that things break when there are differences of opinion. And when there are difference of opinions, people get very attached to their idea. And if they see that somebody doesn't respect that idea or might not agree with them, they start becoming frustrated and aggressive. And then they use words that they might regret later, right? And as a result, we have all our decisions documented on paper. And when you have to express your opinion on paper, you cannot use words that fuck it, we do it my way or the highway. You have to be very intentional about why that decision is a good one. And as soon as you start putting things on paper and you gather options from the entire team, that decision gets better. Because for some reason, I don't understand the process, but whenever you start putting your thoughts in writing and you give more time for that decision to solidify, especially if you get opinions from others. And our team is super diverse. They're from 40 countries. People have other ideas and they make your idea better. They have other angles to look at it. And then you're surprised by, you start with a statement with a problem that you're trying to solve and with options, and you end up with a completely different direction. You might have thought that it takes maybe like 10 weeks to solve for something, when really it's like one line of code and you can solve it very differently. So that kind of intentional about decision making is critical. There are a lot of components of it. I think that I could probably take hours and hours to talk about it, but the two main one are decision making and conflict resolution.
Awesome. That's like super. That deserves its own, blog post, whatever it is. There's a lot there to talk about.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's go a bit further into the quickfire rounds. The quickfire round will ask 4 or 5 questions, and you can give off your answer and you can give a bit of a justification why you might feel that way. So we can kick it off. What's a book recommendation you'd give to another SaaS founder?
All my ideas about culture came from this book called NVC, Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. I even did a lot of trainings on it. And there's a sequel of that. We are rethinking organizations. That's also helping me a lot. So I would say that these are the 2 books that I would recommend.
Awesome. Which entrepreneur or business leader do you admire the most?
I got this question in another podcast and I blanked out a bit. I thought that I don't have someone that I admire, but I realized that I do. There's Satya Nadella, who runs Microsoft with similar principles in his culture, and he gets everybody to read the Nonviolence Communication book too. So it seems that I'm not the only one thinking deeply about it.
Amazing. It's a good signal. What SaaS tool do you use that nobody else knows about yet?
We're testing something but we only started 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago, called Elvex. It's a tool that allows us to build autonomous bots at scale, and we're having a lot of fun with it.
Cool. Can you reveal what are you trying to do at scale?
We have like 71 bots that we want to build. I'll give you some examples. So for instance, we want to help the account executive before they get on a call to have the most up-to-date information about the account in front of them, to be able to help them the most, because our value is help. And we understand where they're spending their ads dollars. We understand what their landing pages look like, who their competitors are, what their competitors are doing to convert, whether there are people in the organization that might have used Chili Piper already, whether I might have a connection already in the account to be able to start having a conversation of what they need. And all those little things, they might seem that they might not make or break the deal. But when you get on a call and your account executive is so familiar with your account and knows so much about your challenges, then the likelihood of you creating a connection with that rep is a lot higher. They may not buy right away, but they will remember.
Cool. What was the tool called? It was Elvex, you said?
LVAX. The reality is that all these bots that we're building and we're experimenting with ourselves, with our sales team, we're going to put them back in the product. So whenever we see that it has impact on our numbers, we'll just build it as part of our demand conversion platform.
Sweet. Cool. And then finally, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Um, my husband is the one that gives me most helpful advice because he's closest to me and he sees my struggles. I would have not started a company if it wasn't for him. And something that I've learned from him early on is that you burn out and you break if you don't take breaks for ease and play and joy. And that's something that from my Romanian culture was not coming easy. I would hustle like there's no tomorrow, like a hamster. 100% my awake hours were spent working since I was 8. And that felt so strange of an advice to me. Why would I add play when I had so many things to do? And because of him, I'm a much better mom. Because of him, I'm a much better leader by just allowing myself to have ease and play in the work.
Amazing. Very inspiring. Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been an awesome session. I hope if you're listening, you took a lot of value from that. And we'll add some links in the comments below for the Autonomous AI Bot, Chili Piper, and Alina's LinkedIn as well. Thank you so much, Jelena.
Thank you, Aman. It was fun. I hope you go back to the sun and enjoy the ease in Australia, the
I
days that
will
you
do.
have left.
I will do.
To finish off this episode, a little promotion from our end. NUOPTIMA is an award-winning marketing agency for B2B SaaS businesses. We work with companies backed by YC, Sequoia, Carlyle, Lightspeed Ventures, Northzone, and many other top VCs and PE investors. We work with venture-backed, private equity-owned, and bootstrapped SaaS businesses all around the world. Reach out to us and book a call in the description below so we can optimize your growth journey. If you have a fellow founder, if you have a team member, if you are part of a Slack group, Telegram, or WhatsApp group with other founders that could get value from this episode, please share this episode with them. We want to help as many founders as possible to scale their business. Thank you for joining us on this journey. See you in the next episode.